Ever stop to think about how the phone in your hand or the coffee in your mug actually got to you? It's all thanks to this massive, pretty much invisible system that keeps our world running. It's called supply chain management. And honestly, the journey of even the simplest things is way more complex than you'd ever guess. To really get a sense of the scale we're talking about, let's kick things off with a question. Think about a Slazenger tennis ball, the official one they use at Wimbledon. What kind of a trip do you think that little ball takes before its first serve on center court? Go on, take a guess. The answer? It's an absolutely staggering 81,385 kilometers. I mean, that's more than twice around the entire planet. It makes it one of the most well-traveled products in the world. But how is that even possible?
Okay, check this out. The materials come from 11 different countries spread across 4 continents. You've got clay from the US, rubber from Malaysia, wool all the way from New Zealand. You get the idea. All of that stuff is brought together in the Philippines to be assembled, and only then is it finally shipped to the UK. This whole incredible global ballet, that's what a supply chain makes possible. So let's use our little tennis ball here as our guide to break down how this whole system actually works. At its very heart, supply chain management, or SCM for short, is really about managing 2 things: relationships and flows. It's not just about moving boxes from point A to point B. It's about coordinating all the different companies and all the different steps needed to get that final product into your hands. And these flows move in 2 directions. You have the downstream flow, which is what we all picture, the products themselves moving from the factory towards the customer. But what's just as important is the upstream flow. That's all the information, your order, your payment, and super valuable data about what the market wants, flowing all the way back from you to the original supplier. And here's a really crucial idea to wrap your head around. We call it a chain, but that word is a massive oversimplification. In reality, it's a complex, sprawling global network. The journey of that one tennis ball involves hundreds of individual supply chains, all tangled up and working together.
So now that we kind of get what a supply chain is, how do companies decide how to run them? Well, it really all comes down to a few key strategic choices. Let me put you in the driver's seat for a second. If you were in charge, what would be your #1 priority? Would it be making things as absolutely cheap as possible? Or would it be about being able to react to changes as fast as you possibly can? This is the fundamental trade-off, right at the heart of supply chain management.
And this choice leads to 2 main strategies. A lean supply chain is all about efficiency. It's perfect for what we call functional products. Think canned soup, where demand is stable and predictable. The goal is simple: the lowest possible cost. On the other hand, you have an agile supply chain. This is built for speed and responsiveness. It's essential for innovative products like a new smartphone, where demand is totally unpredictable and speed is everything. The key insight here: you have to match your chain to your product. Predictability loves leanness. Uncertainty demands agility. Another big decision is what kind of relationship you want with your suppliers. You can be purely transactional, always hunting for the best price on every single purchase. Or you can build a partnership, a long-term collaboration based on trust and sharing information for everyone's benefit. In the real world, most companies use a mix of both. And choosing the right strategy is absolutely critical, because if you fail to manage these complex networks, you run into a huge problem. But even the most brilliantly designed supply chain has to deal with a common and really dangerous enemy. It's a phenomenon with a very catchy name. It's called the bullwhip effect, and it's a perfect name for it. Just picture someone cracking a whip. A tiny little flick of the wrist creates a huge, powerful wave at the very tip. While in a supply chain, a tiny change in what customers are buying can create massive, chaotic waves for suppliers all the way at the other end. So how does this actually happen? Well, it all starts with something tiny, almost unnoticeable. Just a little ripple from the end customer. Now the retailer sees this little ripple, and just to play it safe, they add a bit of a buffer, adjusting their order to the wholesaler by a slightly larger amount. The ripple just got bigger.
The wholesaler, now seeing a bigger wave coming from the retailer, overcorrects even more when they place their order with the manufacturer. Everyone's just trying to protect themselves.
By the time that signal gets all the way back to the original manufacturer and their raw material suppliers, that tiny little ripple has turned into a destructive tidal wave of volatility. The numbers really tell the story here, and they are wild. A small 5% drop in customer demand, going from 100 units to 95, causes the manufacturer to cut their production by 10%. The next supplier back cuts their orders by 20%. By the time you get to the third-tier supplier, they see a devastating 80% drop in their orders, all from a tiny 5% change at the store.
And the consequences of this are severe. You get companies stuck with tons of inventory they can't sell, they're forced into these horrible hire and fire cycles, deliveries get delayed, and just frustration spreads through the entire network. It's incredibly wasteful and damaging. So, if the bullwhip is the villain of our story, how do modern companies fight back? How do they tame these crazy dynamics? Well, the battle plan really has three main parts. First, and this is the most important one, is radical information sharing. If everyone in the chain can see the real end customer demand in real time, they won't overreact. Second is getting everybody on the same page, using similar planning methods. And third is just making every single step faster and more efficient to cut down on delays. And when we talk about that first crucial point, sharing information that everyone can trust, there's a powerful technology that's changing the game. I'm talking about blockchain.
So here's the basic idea of how it works. Every transaction, let's say a shipment leaving a port, gets broadcast to a shared network. That whole network of computers has to validate it and agree, yep, this is legit. Once it's verified, that transaction gets locked into a new block of data. And that block is permanently and irreversibly added to the chain. It creates a single, secure, transparent source of truth that everyone can see and trust. It's basically the ultimate weapon against the bullwhip effect.
Which brings us to one last thought. We started out by calling supply chains an invisible system. Now, recent disruptions made them painfully visible to all of us. But as new technologies like AI and blockchain make them smarter, faster, and stronger, you have to wonder, is the ultimate goal for them to become so good, so seamless, that they become perfectly invisible once again?